Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci beaucoup, Gigi, pour cette super belle introduction. You see what she did there and the way she introduced me for our very first edition of the 2022 Fintech Drinks series. My name is Nina-Mae. I am the head of partnership at Fintech Cadence, and I have the pleasure of being your host and moderator this evening. Just before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous people of all the lands that we're on today. So while we meet on a virtual platform, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land, which we all call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and our cultures. So from coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territories of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people that have been the traditional caretakers of this land for many thousands of years. So in just a few minutes, I will have the pleasure of discussing one of the hottest topics that we're all talking in the tech industries these days, the shortage of tech talent. I will be speaking with three amazing panelists that will share with us how they're tackling this very big challenge. So before I continue, I hope you guys made some great connections in the speed networking prior to the kickoff of the event right now. Did you meet some cool people? There's still time to connect. You can also meet again after during the speed networking after the panel discussions. Vous aurez l'occasion encore d'aller réseauter avec les participants à la suite de la discussion plus tard ce soir. If this is your first Fintech Drinks event, welcome. But you must know that this is the tradition with us. We want to know what you guys are drinking. So for myself, I'm really happy. I don't know where you guys are, but in Montreal, spring is here. I mean, it was here last week. This week is not so sure, but to celebrate the arrival of spring, I'm drinking a beautiful glass of Chablis. So classic, but never gets old. So cheers to you in the audience. I hope you guys are ending the day with a nice drink to relax with us and listen to what our panelists have to say. So make sure you share in the chat. We want to know, we're curious. We want to know what you guys are drinking. What's your poison of choice? What will you be pairing the discussion with? All right, so I have a few admin items to go through, and then I promise you we'll get right to the discussion. All right, so tonight, I'm going to do a quick intro of Fintech Cadence if you're not too familiar with our organization. Our sponsors are in the audience with us tonight, so we're very happy that they will come and say a few words. I have a few announcements to make, and then we'll jump right into the conversation. All right, so Fintech Cadence, who we are. We're a nonprofit started in 2017, and we're Canada's Fintech hub. Our mission is to advance the financial system to serve all the Canadians for the better. So we're able to do this by focusing on three pillars. So the first one is education. We do a lot of work introducing talent to the world of Fintech. The second one is focused on supporting very early stage Fintech startups. And the third pillar is collaboration with different stakeholders in the ecosystem. We have 4 programs. So this Fintech certificate, it's an introductory course on Fintech for professionals and university students alike. Our Ascension program is a 3-month incubation program designed specifically for early stage Fintech startups. Our Formathon is a one-of-a-kind professional Fintech case competition where participants are working on solving real industry challenges. And the IFH Lab is a 6-month incubation program for Fintech startups focused on bettering the financial lives of Canadians. Make sure you tune in for the next Fintech Drinks to know who the startups will be, the startups that will be part of the cohort for IFH Lab this year. We also have 3 types of events throughout the year. So the first ones are Fintech Drinks. While you guys are here, the idea is to discuss hot topic and for the community to network together. Our university series are introductions to Fintech that we do in universities across the countries to introduce students to the world of Fintech. And finally, the Fintech Career Fair. We recently hosted our most recent Fintech Career Fair last month. It was a huge success. The idea is to pair job seekers with amazing employers in Fintech. So Fintech Drinks are possible thanks to our amazing sponsors. So first, I'd like to thank EY, our champion sponsor. And from EY, I'd like to welcome Hélène Hainaut, Assistant Director, Innovation and Wavespace at EY.
Thank you, Nina. Once again, EY is extremely proud to sponsor the Fintech Cadence, actually since 2019. We're absolutely delighted to witness the ripple effect generated by the Fintech Cadence community over the years. For those who don't know us, EY is a professional services firm that strives at connecting Fintech to client by leveraging what's best of what Fintech has to offer, fueling growth and innovation with sustainability at its core. Enjoy the Fintech Drinks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Julien. So we're really happy. EY has been a long-time supporter of Fintech Drinks. So thanks for coming on and supporting us once again this year. Now, we also have two other amazing event sponsors this year, Station Fintech and Tories. First, I'd like to welcome Mathieu Lambert, Director of Fintech Development at Station Fintech, to say a few words to us.
Thank you, Nina, and bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. So as ourselves, an incubator, cluster, accelerator, we know how important the work that Fintech Cadence is doing. So we're very proud to support it year after year. For those of you who don't know the Station Fintech, we are part of Finance Montreal. So we are the financial cluster of Quebec. Among other things, we run a physical hub dedicated to fintech startups downtown Montreal. It's very complementary with what Fintech Cadence is doing. Stationfintech.com, check it out to see how we can help you. Thank you for having me, and have a great evening, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mathieu. And finally, the last but not the least, I would like to welcome Kanata Lake from Tories to say a few words to the audience tonight.
Good. Thank you so much, Nina. My name is Kanata. I'm a partner here at Tories. And at Tories, we're excited to partner with Fintech Cadence in sponsoring tonight and the other drink nights that will happen. Really excited to work with Fintech Cadence, and it's just an integral part of the ecosystem in terms of supporting startups that are focused on fintech. And in particular, we think the drink nights is really awesome because just opportunity to bring people together to collaborate. For those of you that don't know us, Tories were a law firm that is focused, a startup practice that is focused on emerging companies, and particularly on the fintech. And so look forward to tonight's event and all learning ourselves about how to address the talent shortage.
Thank you so much, Canada. And thank you to all the sponsors who are making Fintech Drinks possible. Okay, everyone, I promise I have two more announcements, then we'll jump right into the panel. Okay, so next week is the Canadian Fintech Summit. So next Tuesday and Wednesday, the Fintech Cadence team is going to be there. It's happening in person in Toronto. We want to see you. If you're going to be there, let us know. And if you haven't purchased your ticket, there's still time. Make sure you check out the Fintech Cadence LinkedIn. We have a 20% off discount code for you. So check it out. Also, our friends at Payments Canada are hosting their annual summit at the end of April. For Fintech Cadence community, once again, gets a great discount of 40%. So please, again, everything is on our LinkedIn. If you want to go and attend the Payment Canada Summit, they always have amazing speakers during the events. All right, so the event that you guys are here for tonight. So everyone has been talking about the challenges around the shortage of tech talent. Earlier this year, TD was saying that they're looking to hire 2,000 tech workers this year. RBC says the shortage of talent is one of the top concerns right now. CIBC says they're doing hackathons to try to retain their tech talent and their employees. We've also heard about crazy salary surge, even over 30% in the last year. So this is really forcing companies to be very creative and attractive and attracting and retaining the talent that they have. So I'm really happy today to have Kristen McGill, COO at ZayZoon, Marc Floisand, who's the SVP Product Marketing at Coveo, and Julien Crowe, who's a Senior Manager at the AI Factory at National Bank, to discuss the shortage of tech talent with us tonight. another great introduction by Gigi. Thank you so much, Gigi. Good evening, all three of you. I'm really happy to have you guys with us tonight. Before we start, maybe we could do a quick roundtable. So, Kristen, if I can please ask you to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and your work at the ZayZoon.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kristen McGill, and I'm the COO at ZayZoon. We're a high-growth HR tech scale-up that provides on-demand access to wages as employees earn them, in addition to other financial education tools. So my focus there has been ensuring that we're scaling our company the right way. I'm really passionate about ensuring that every member of our team, regardless of their role, understands how they contribute to our higher level strategy. A strong executional model really helps you to drive results, but culture is what really gives your organization heart. And that's what makes people want to join your mission. That's really my focus at ZayZoon.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kristen. On to you, Mark. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience tonight?
Sure, thank you. Mark Floisand. I've been with Coveo about 6 years. I look after product marketing here at Coveo. We are headquartered in Quebec City with a decent-sized office in Montreal, and we're just starting to bring people back. For my sins, I happen to be based on the West Coast, and therefore my drink of choice right now, given it's only 2:44 p.m., is still a cup of tea. But if this was 3 hours later, I'd stick a jack of bourbon in it, I guess.
Yeah, we say tea, but we can't see what's in your cup, so we'll have to trust your word for it. Thank you for this intro, Mark. Julien, on to you. Please introduce yourself and also let us know maybe you're a bit wilder than Mark with your cocktail.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. Thank you, Nina, for the invitation. So I work for National Bank of Canada, which is one of the 6 largest banks in Canada. And I'm responsible for the management of all artificial intelligence assets at the bank, the transversal ones especially. I'm also responsible for R&D partnerships with academia and universities, among other things, to support the development of talent and the partnerships in great common projects and collaboration with the ecosystem. I've been at bank for about 5 years. I've worked in healthcare, other financial institutions before around analytics, operations research, AI, and so on. And my drink of choice for tonight is sadly not a lot more exotic than yours, Mark. It's water, although in this case as well, you can't really tell if it's water or whiskey or maybe something else.
Well, I think you're in your office, so we don't want to get you in trouble. We'll take your word for it.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you to the three of you. Okay, quick session of rapid fire questions for you. Julien, what makes you most excited about FinTech in 2022?
I'm looking very much for 2022 for everything related to embedded finance. So for those of you who are not comfortable with the concept, it's basically third parties having access to banking services and being able to offer them directly to their clients, partners, and so on. We've been discussing this for a little while now, and I'm very much hoping that 2022 is the year where we see embedded finance go to market.
Very nice. Kristen, what are your top 3 biggest challenge in recruiting right now?
I think for us, it's speed is probably number one. We're not a giant corporation yet, knock on wood, and we don't have a full-time team that's dedicated to recruiting. So that's one thing that's really tricky with the amount of competition right now. Another thing is definitely sourcing. In Canada, we are still feeling a little bit of a limited talent pool when we're trying to hit a point now where we're hiring more specialized roles. And so that can be something tricky to navigate. And I think the third is really just noise. I think with a lot of the buzz that's going on, an inflated salary expectation doesn't necessarily equate to an A player or the right person for your role. And so, slowing down to make sure that you're still getting the right talent in the door is so incredibly important.
I hear you all. Very, very good points there. Thank you, Kristen. Mark, what's one good thing that came out of COVID for your business?
One good thing. I guess one of the things that we've probably all seen in different aspects was just the sheer acceleration that a number of accounts and companies went into in recognizing that the world that they were operating within had changed. And it became this catalyst for much more digital orientation of projects, a lot more drive towards figuring out how to service customers, clientele, members, brokers, depending on what your organization was, digitally, because they couldn't meet people in person anymore. And so there was this perverse thing where, as we were all locked down, we had to, as organizations, figure out how to deliver better service at a distance. And I think that catalyst is something that none of us would want to go back from.
Yeah, impossible. You're not going to get me back into the office. I'm just like, well, thank you so much for these very good answers, guys. So we work a lot with startup. We've been hearing from them that it's really hard to find talent these days. Kristen just mentioned it as well. Not only, like she was mentioning, the pool of talent is really limited, but salaries have increased a lot in the last 2 years. There was even a survey done by DMZ that was saying that 42 of the companies that they helped launch, 57% of those companies said that the compensation was a really big challenge in them hiring. So not only is the salary a big barrier, but I'd be curious to know, maybe we can start with you, Mark. Can you tell us a bit more about how this issue has impacted your business operations? Like, have you had to slow down some projects? Have you had to review some processes to adapt your operations? How has this affected you?
Yeah, well, we're a growing company. We've been growing very fast over the last several years. I had the opportunity to go public on the TSE last November, which is, I guess, a statement of the fact that our customers have continued to, go with us. And that growth is fueled by the innovation that comes from our engineering teams. And so I think one of the things that we had to grapple with very quickly was how to continue to be able to expand our teams in what has become a much more competitive market. We had to stay competitive with other hirers. Most of our engineering team is in the province of Quebec. And what, of course, we've seen over time is that with COVID, as the barriers to entry of working in different organizations all over the globe came down, everywhere became a hunting ground. And so, if anything, we've had to recognize that we're in a global market for talent, and that there's a supply and demand set of equations that are global in nature. And to some degree, what that's done is it's driven up the price we're prepared to pay for recruitment. But we haven't stopped. We cannot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Julien, Kristen, I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of how it has affected your operations. Have you had to slow down projects or adapt some of your current operations due to shortage of talent?
I mean, for sure, it's been having an impact on our operations. I would say that the most difficult thing with the shortage of talent has mostly been around hiring seniors. We've been able to put in place strategies for younger folks, but seniors were a lot more difficult to bring to the organization, to the bank. And I wouldn't say that this has slowed down projects, but it has forced us to put in place processes to ensure the quality of our operations models, to be sure that the software products around AI, for instance, that we put in production, don't only rely on a single person, have a good process around it, and put in place a much more iterative way of developing products where we expect perhaps more mistakes of being done in the code, in the software, but we have much shorter cycles and a capacity to improve that software a lot faster than what we used to before. So it's actually pushed us to put in place a much more robust process than what we had before. And of course, put in place strategies as well to support our younger, more junior folks joining the company develop a lot faster than what we had available for them before.
Yeah, adding on to Julien's comment as well, I think for us, there's been times where we've gone and conducted a search and realized along the way that we'd have to scope down the role. So rather than, forgo choosing any of those candidates, there were scenarios where we had to revisit the role itself and figure out, could we scope this down in a way where the candidates in front of us could be successful? And that definitely placed more pressure on the leaders in our organization. But when you're facing that decision of, do we just stop building some of the things we're building, or do we scope it down and just kind of keep our heads down and forge ahead? That was the decision that we had to make.
No, very good point. And speaking of pressure, Kristen, I want to stay with you a little bit. ZayZoon raised their Series A in December, so congratulations on that. I want to know, we've also been reading about the pressure from, the allocation of fund that had to be adjusted according to the inflation of salaries and also upskilling costs. Like, how is it affecting you and your budgeting at ZayZoon?
Yeah, it definitely plays a part, especially, in a scale-up organization. Every dollar that you're not putting towards growth can definitely impact the results that you're seeing at the end of the year. I mean, for us, I think, it's really been about getting laser focused in terms of what it is that we are doing. There basically is no room for distractions. We're seeing a lot of competition in salaries. And, I truly believe that there were a lot of good benefits with COVID, and even for our team opening up the idea of having even more remote workers than what we had initially. That's giving us a larger pool to draw candidates from. However, at the same time, that creates new challenges. How are you ensuring pay equity within your organization? How are you staying competitive? We're just never going to be able to compete with a Google or an Amazon in terms of compensation. And so what is it that we're putting in place to attract talent? I think Calgary has been fortunate in that there have been a lot of great success stories, and that's really building the Alberta ecosystem in terms of tech that is attracting more talent to this area. But certainly we don't restrict our searches to just Calgary.
Yeah, no, that's a super important point. And as a follow-up question, maybe I can ask Mark and Julien how working virtually and remotely has influenced your ability to attract talent. Has this changed anything for your companies, your respective companies?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's been a blessing and a curse. It's been a curse in that, we've got very, very good people who we hired locally in Quebec or we hired locally in Montreal who are now marketable globally across time zones. And so like every other successful tech company, the headhunters are calling our teams, right? The corollary is also true, which is because it's a global market, we're also able to poach talent. And so I think if anything, we should simply see the fact that what perhaps used to be more geographic constraints around where people hire, those are largely gone. And to a degree that has broadened the talent pool that we can go tap into, so much the better. At the same time, we have to think about retaining the core talent that we have, which are absolutely fundamental to the success of us moving forward.
I honestly don't have a lot to add to what you just said, Mark. We were already hiring internationally before, before COVID happened, before the talent situation became so tight. I would just say that hiring internationally has become even more difficult lately because of all the competition that we feel in the market. So this is something that we have to deal with like everybody else.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I think it's it's good to know that you're able to expand your horizons in terms of hiring. I'm wondering on the reverse, we know that you guys are also competing with larger firms, the Google, Amazon, Facebook of this world. Do you feel like we're losing there's some kind of a brain drain out of Canada, and then these companies are able to scoop out the top Canadian talents to our detriment?
So I have a fairly strong opinion on that, if I can step in, because one of the things I think we've seen, particularly within tech vendors, which of course we are one of several, is that as we see international companies putting roots down in Montreal, in Toronto, in Quebec, in Vancouver, in Calgary, wherever they are starting to invest and expand, that is draining the what is a finite talent pool. It's perhaps. It might be, and I run the risk of saying things that may be a little controversial, but it may be politically expedient to say that that's creating jobs. It isn't. It's actually adding additional demand on a supply chain that is finite. What we have to do is figure out how to equip more people to enter the workforce to enjoy these benefits. I would also argue there's maybe a flip side to this, which is when there are organizations that put offices down within Canada and have intellectual property developed that actually is monetized, let's say in the US, where's the tax benefit for the Canadian base that flows from that? There isn't one. And so there are a lot of deeper issues. It's not just about talent pool, it's about IP retention. It's ultimately about wealth creation in terms of a tax base that benefits all, which is very much where this conversation kicked off at the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I thought Julien, you're going to jump in, but yeah, I think I totally agree with you. And this is one of the concerns, but I want to know in this case, how can we compete with the generous offers that these large companies are doing to the Canadian talent? What are your tactics? Because I know you guys are in real life competing with these companies.
Sure.
How do you do it?
Sure, a really good point. And as I said, you have to be competitive on a global basis now. So, have we seen wage inflation? Yes, and we'll probably continue to see it. There is still the sense of disparate, cost of living relative to where folks are, but those are narrowing. Those are absolutely narrowing in terms of expectation of what talent can demand. It's not tied to where they happen to be. But I think what we're seeing, and this is ironic, certainly on the back of COVID, there's a real appetite to work together again. And we're certainly seeing this as we've just reopened our Quebec and our Montreal offices on Tuesdays and Thursdays as a basis for giving people the opportunity to ease back in, figure out how to start working together. And the appetite to get back together is really high. I would say there's a little bit of I'm going to call it an age disparity. Those that are perhaps a little further along in their careers are a little bit slower to want to go back into the office. Those that are earlier in their careers are desperate for that engagement. And it's ironic, when we announced it internally, and we see this obviously as a key part of retention, because you want people to bond. It's not just the paycheck, it's all of that. The sort of chatter that was going around on our Slack and so on and so forth were about things like the board gaming clubs and the online gaming clubs and the chess clubs and all of the other stuff that's about working together and having fun together that people have missed desperately for 2 years. That's the sort of stuff that glues a team together. It's not just the paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kristen, I know you are known to create great cultures as a company. How are you competing? What are you offering to differentiate yourself with these large companies?
I think one of the things that over and over again comes up from our candidates is that our mission really resonates with them. We're out there doing good. We're actually helping people. And I know that not every company has that to rely on, but it is something that really sets us apart. Not only are we able to, articulate our mission really clearly to people looking to join our team, but we can also articulate very clearly how exactly they will help that end customer and what that looks like. And so I do think that that's something that we lean on, even among our leadership team when we were originally, just scrapping to get financing together, really early stages. We had a lot of people joking around about, you have to choose to want to work at a startup, right? If you're getting really high caliber senior talent, there are sacrifices being made in order to join that team, and they have to want it, and they have to believe. They have to believe where you're going, and they have to actually believe that you can get there. And I think, for me, even going through our recruiting process, I really emphasize that. I treat every recruiting call, interview as like half of it should be me pitching that candidate. This is why you should work here. This is why I love it. This is why you're going to love it. And ultimately, if, an extra 30% on their paycheck is what they need to be satisfied as an employee, that's for them to decide, and then that's okay. But if they really believe in what we're doing, then I want them to be part of our team.
Yeah, totally. It's a very good point. I think the dynamic has changed a lot into candidates asking what's in it for me. It's great. You have to pitch the company. I agree with you. Julien, I know that National Bank, you're taking a very, very early approach to get the candidates in your pipeline. How do you keep the tech talent interested in wanting to join National Bank as opposed to another large firm?
Yeah, so I think especially if you target the big tech firms from the States, if you have a developer who's been there for a few years, gets paid the classic salary that they get, it's going to be very difficult to bring him back on board, right? I think here it's all about the relationship. And one of the strategies we put in place is that we build relationships with strong ones, with universities, with academia, and with students very, very, very early on in their programs, right? We don't wait for students to be new graduates. We start the conversation with them when they're in their first year. We offer them internships. We build the relationship. And what we've seen, I mean, we've been doing that pretty much ever since I arrived about 5 years ago. And we're seeing graduates now who come to us to ask us for a job, even though the current market is very, very competitive. And so I think the key element here is the opportunity to build a relationship. In the end, yes, salary matters. But I do think that the relationship matters more. And if you've had a chance to build a relationship with a potential candidate, and there's a trust relationship, there's a common vision that you're able to share with that person, I think it makes a big difference. And so, of course, for employees who have been with large techs for a couple of years making big salaries, it's going to be very, very difficult to bring them on board with a salary that may not be competitive to what they have, right? They don't know necessarily about us. We don't have a relationship with them. But once you build a relationship, it actually puts you at an advantage. And so this is a very key element of recruiting that unfortunately I feel sometimes is left behind and not thought of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I'd like to know from a recruiting perspective to a retention perspective, how are you investing in your current talent and your existing employees? Make sure that they don't get, well, they probably get approached by other competitors, but how do you invest in them? Is it upskilling? Is it promotions? How do you keep the talent that you have? Any one of you, I want to hear from all of you.
Sure, I'll have a go. I guess there's a lot in there, right? So if we think from an upskilling point of view, everybody that we hire, we know one of the questions they've got is, what am I going to be doing in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time? And so being able to be really clear about career paths helps alleviate the uncertainty for an applicant of, what might be seen as just a job at another company, especially if they're a very large firm, where they know that they're going to be doing something very, very precise, but it's unclear where the growth opportunity is for them. We actually have used that as a fairly aggressive recruitment tactic, which is we grow people fast. We bring, we've got a history of bringing people in relatively early in their careers, giving them a lot of responsibility and watching them step up. And that's what most folks want, is clarity of where what I'm going to be doing, clarity that there's an opportunity, and clarity of a career path that's there. So that's really important, and the support and the upskilling that goes with that along the way. The corollary of that is making sure that we're able to also reflect that there are some folks for whom the role they're in is the role they like and the role they're good at, and they might not necessarily aspire to be a team lead of a dozen folks, and that's okay too. How do we make sure that they are comfortable, that they're part of the group, that they're not feeling that as an individual contributor by choice, that in some way is not a career path? It absolutely is. But we need to make sure that folks understand that there are things, horses for courses. You can grow where you want to grow. And I think that's a really important point from the recruitment point of view, which is we know where you're going to be in 3 years' time.
I agree with Mark. I mean, the career path element is very, very important. There's the challenge element that is another one that's very important. How challenging are the opportunities that you provide to the employees? And again, don't want to bore you with this, but I think the relationship is very important as well. Yeah. If our people get approached on a very regular basis, and the difference between someone who will leave before giving you a chance to compete with another offer or to offer other opportunities internally to that person versus someone who just goes away without telling you anything is the quality of the relationship. We've done other things to try to retain our talent, especially since COVID. We've built programs that allow employees who have families outside of the countries or who have roots outside of the country to be able to work from there for a while. That's helped us a lot remain key talent. I allow my team to spend an afternoon every week on training and personal development, with everybody having a different path. So this matters as well. And I think another element that makes a key difference is being proactive in promotions. I think a lot of employees don't want anymore to have to apply to jobs to get a promotion, to have to fight and negotiate for a promotion. When someone is a high performer, they expect that their managers will take care of them and will support them in their career development. And this has made a big difference in reducing our turnover rate and has increased our retention in the end.
Yeah, if I can build on that, Julien, one of the things that we've seen, and again, maybe I'm showing my age here and, my gray hair, what little bit of it's left, but I would say we've also seen a generational change. Certainly for the folks that are relatively new in their careers, they have a real expectation of seeing rapid evolution of, title and responsibility, to the point that if it's not every 6 months, they're hungry to look around elsewhere. And so we recognize that and want to plan that into, here's what you're going to be doing in 6 months' time, and here's how we can reward you and recognize you and grow. It's not like wait till an annual review. That's too far.
And in that regard, and I think you touched on this point, Mark, a little bit earlier, it's important for technical people to have development path other than becoming a manager. Absolutely. And that makes a huge difference. The bank has implemented that, and it's helped us keep a lot of great resources become technical gurus instead of being forced into management when it's not what interests them.
Right.
That's a really good point. Kristen, I'd like to hear your take on retention as well. A really good point at the end, Mark. Thank you.
I mean, definitely, again, piggybacking off a couple of things that have been said already, relationship is huge for retention for us. And, I had all these ideas bouncing around in my head listening to these guys talk. Relationship to me is if you are about to get poached, not only do you not take that offer, but you're going to run and tell me that somebody is calling around and talking to the team. And that kind of connection only comes from making a concerted effort in doing so. In our company, all of our managers have one-to-ones with everybody on their team on a very regular basis, sometimes weekly, minimum every 2 weeks, just even if it's a quick check-in to say, how are things going? Where are you stuck? What do you need from me? What do you need from leadership? That desire to have that one-on-one attention and that feedback is increasing, I think, in a lot of teams. This generation of workers is a lot more purpose-driven, and they require a lot more constant feedback. And it's not really that hard to do it. You just have to have the right operational model to make sure that it's actually happening. For us, we run a lot of different tools that allow us to gauge what's going on in the team. We run a quarterly employee NPS score, so Net Promoter Score. We're able to get feedback on that, and we directly respond to it. So we ask people, rate us 1 to 10 on how likely you are to tell your friends and family that this is a great place to work, and then tell me why. Or tell me what we need to do better. And when we get all that feedback, we directly address it. So we'll flag what's been raised. We'll talk about why we are or are not doing something. We'll talk about what actions are already in place. We keep the team updated. The more that you give your team a voice and multiple forums to raise questions or concerns and directly address that feedback, the more that you demonstrate that you actually care about your people and that they're not just a number, they're not just a cog in a machine. Those are the things that drive retention. On our most recent ENPS, our team is about 50 people now. We had 75% of our team give us a 9 or 10 out of 10. Wow. So just seeing that level of engagement in our team is incredibly humbling as a leader. But that's when you know that people love working there. And when things start getting a little grindy and it's really busy and you're stretching your resources and trying to do a lot with a little, that's when people are going to stick around.
Honestly, what I'm hearing from this conversation, and obviously this is my own interpretation, but I feel like all three of you, your management style involves so much more emotional intelligence. Like you were saying, Kristen, like the employees is no longer a number. How often have we heard that before? So maybe it's a little bit of a silver lining. I hope your bosses are taking good care of you as well, in the same way that you're catering to these employees, because you want to retain them. And I'm sure this conversation also trickles down to non-tech employees. I mean, we need love too. So
yeah, I just want to pick up on the point, Kristen, you made about the purpose. Obviously, it's a very purpose-driven organization. And I would say from a retention point of view, one of the things that I would echo on that is we were fortunate, as I mentioned, to go public last year. And part of what we did as part of that process was put in place our basically 1% pledge, which is 1% of everyone's time, 1% of profits, 1% of products, and 1% of the equity, in other words, the funds we raised, have been set aside for frankly good causes, and there's a whole program for it. That made a huge difference in our retention rates, because people were like, what's this company for? And it's not about, what do we do with AI and how do we help enterprises? It runs deeper than that. And so I agree with you entirely. When people are able to see that they're contributing to something that's more than themselves, it actually makes a big difference, and it's a bonding function.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd like to jump on one of your points very quickly, Kristen, as well. I think this point of giving a voice to employees is very important. It makes a big difference when employees feel that they have control and power over the work environment they work with, instead of only being the victim of the decisions of the manager, right? And that makes a huge difference. And so we try as much as possible to put this in place in our organization as well. And it makes a big difference when employees can have power over their daily life, the work they do on a daily basis, how they do it, the interactions they have with their colleagues. It makes a big difference. That's a very important.
well, okay, perfect. I think it's a very important part. We all agree. Thank you so much. I think this was a beautiful segment of the conversation. So I really appreciate all of you for that very specific part. I want to switch gear a little bit, and I want to ask a question to Julien, because we wanted to speak to Julien also because of his expertise in the AI factory at National Bank, but it will affect Mark and Kristen as well, because oftentimes people have a fear that technology or AI is going to take over their job. But in a lot of times, I'm sure it's providing also, I mean, we know that there's a shortage in the tech talent. So these are new and creative ways to replace maybe some processes, task workers by some technology or AI. How has it been helping at National Bank, for example, Julien?
Yeah, that's definitely a concern from a lot of people, right? And we see it internally as well. But when you look at history, I mean, we've been there for a little bit of a while, right? Since 1859. So we've seen a lot of technological changes along our history. And the reality is our workforce has just kept growing through all that time. And what we see with AI right now is not very different. So if we take, for example, the large deployment of chatbot capabilities we've done on our different ecosystem, retail banking, digital platforms, as well as wealth management and discount brokerage platforms. When COVID started, we ended up having a huge surge in our phone centers, in our call centers. Of course, a lot of people were in difficult financial situation at that time, early in 2020. And nobody wanted to go to a branch anymore, right? Everybody was worried of the impact of going out. So what did everybody do? They picked up the phone and they called the bank. That's created a lot of stress in the call center. And what's happening there is that all the questions of tackling complex problems or getting financial advice are getting mixed up with more mundane issues, such as I forgot my password, I need to reset it. How do I access this kind of information? How do I log, a travel warning on my profile, and these kind of elements? And so by deploying our chatbots for these kind of conversations, for basically basic informational conversations, accompanying our clients on simple activities that they can do by themselves on digital platforms, we've allowed to lower the volume of calls at the call center And we've allowed our call center agents to focus on solving complex problems when clients need it and give financial advice, which a chatbot is not going to do. So in the end, there were no layoffs at the call center. Everybody's kept their jobs. We've actually increased the number of people at the call center. And what we noticed is that we can now allow our agents at the call center to invest more time on each call with our clients, and our client satisfaction has been increasing. So this type of technology, for me, does not have an objective of reducing the workforce. It's really an objective of enhancing the satisfaction of the client and allowing our workforce to focus on where their expertise can really bring an impact. The workforce is more happy, the clients are more happy.
Very nice. I don't know if Mark, Kristen, you have some example where also technology played a nice role, like a nice example, like Julien just said, where it really helped supported your operations.
Well, I mean, I'd just follow on from Julien's point. We're in a fortunate space in that our technology does what he's talking about, and so there's a lot of banks and insurance firms that have been through that same challenge of how do you manage the influx, how do you provide people with the right information that they're looking for, and how do you try and lower the cost of serving these customers through utilizing technology? Well, the irony of it is, along the way, over the last 2 years, when everyone was at home, they wanted to serve themselves anyway. And so there was this incredible appetite to consume those kind of services, the chatbots, the online portals, the self-service mechanisms. And again, there's no going back from that. So I think what we've seen is, from a consumer acceptance point of view, whether I'm filling in a mortgage application or checking a policy, the expectation of being able to do it online and to do it in the medium that I choose, whether it's on a phone or on a laptop or via a chat session, or actually ultimately, through a chatbot itself, those expectations have all come up, and we trust that as long as we're getting the right answers and we're getting the right conversations, and ultimately are able to solve our problems without needing to wait on the phone for someone, these things work. I think there's another piece to it as well, though, that if we think from an employer point of view, and certainly an employee point of view, there's that sense of, there's a glib response to AI, which is, it's taking jobs. And it really isn't. It's actually augmenting what people are able to do so that they can very often park the stuff that is repetitive, know that there are machine learning models that can take care of a lot of that stuff and free them up to focus on, let's call them classier problems, more difficult, more challenging things to get your teeth into rather than mundanity and repetition. And you see that in just about every role, whether it's in marketing or support or product development, whatever it happens to be. And so I think that the more we see this as a set of tools that can be harnessed, not something that is there to replace folks, the better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark and Julien. One of the things I wanted to touch on, for those of you in the audience, please make sure you write your questions in the chat. If you have any questions, we'll keep a little bit of time to ask a couple questions to our panelists. I hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as I am. One of the things that's really important, and you mentioned earlier that you guys are hiring a little bit from everywhere now because people are in this virtual world. And one question I have for you is how this diversity, equity, and inclusion has played, well, I'm assuming, an increasing role in the way you do business and the way you treat employees. What has changed in that regard, or what has improved, or how has it been affecting you?
I always thought that what the crowd looks like in the office should be what it looks like down on the street, right? If you have an office downtown Montreal, you should, in terms of diversity, have the same profiles of what you see on the street when you go out. Now, we've always been relatively diverse. I mean, when I started building the data science teams, half of them were women. Now in my IT team, I think about 35 to 40% of the staff is women. They come from all over the world, lots of different profiles. We're very diverse. I think we're pretty much at the image of Montreal, where we're based. It's a very young crowd as well, very, very dynamic. The labor shortage, I gotta say, did force us though to look a little bit further than what I'm going to call visible diversity, right? And so it's actually had the benefit of forcing us to look into things such as neurodivergency, right? And it's very good for teams in IT because you can have people with autism, for instance, that will actually be great contributors at solving complex problems. So we've actually started looking at these dimensions. We've put a program in place internally to support managers understand how to work with neurodivergence and help the bank become a more welcoming place to to these kind of profiles. I've had a few in my team. It's been a great experience, and I'm continuing to do so. So I think it's great that we are questioning ourselves on what we can do to be more inclusive. When we look at diversity at large, not only the question of visible diversity, I mean, it's been great for my personal development. I think it's been great for my colleagues' development in the team as well. And I'm definitely hoping that we come up with more ideas like these to continue to expand how much of an inclusive organization we are.
Kristen, beautiful
Yeah,
answer, Julien. Sorry. Kristen, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add a couple comments. I mean, this is certainly a topic that has come up more and more and isn't going to be resolved tomorrow. I think a lot of it requires being proactive in your organization. In our team, we had an individual that was especially passionate about DEI and launched a number of initiatives this quarter with our team. And I think that really helps to drive the conversation in your team and increasing the awareness of what you should be doing when we're going through things like recruiting. You have to be very intentional. You need to tell your recruiters that we're specifically looking for a female or somebody, you know, in a specific group when you're trying to hit a talent pool that may be, mainly male. It really requires that intention of paying attention to what you're doing. I know that there are more and more recruiting applicant tracking systems now that will track that data for you, that will give you the data on the diversity within your team and help you to highlight candidates that might fit groups that you're lacking in your current complement. The strongest teams will always be the ones that are most diverse. And so the more that we lean into some of these practices, increase awareness within our teams and take action in terms of doing something about it, that's what's going to help us to close the gap.
Yeah, I'd absolutely second that, Kristen. Just building on it, from a Coveo point of view, we've actually got 4 core values as a company: passion, inclusion, collaboration, and integrity. And those things are very overlapping. A large part of the inclusion piece is that sense of when you put people together from diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, diverse cultures, diverse opinion, you get a lot more creativity, you get more innovation. Homogeneity is not something that fosters innovation and variety, and you need people to challenge and to bring all walks of life into inventing better products, inventing better customer experiences. And Julien, to your point, if you don't echo and reflect your customer base, it's really hard to know whether you're actually meeting their specific needs. And so that's become a really important part for us. And it ties directly to this notion of collaboration as well. When you figure out ways to work with people who may have very directly opposing views to you, or they may bring something to the table that might be new for you and uncomfortable for you, it's an opportunity to deal with it.
Thank you so much, Oh, Julien, you wanted to add?
Maybe one little point that may be relevant to add to this, if I can, Nina.
Yeah,
we're talking about talent shortages, right? If you look at neurodivergent profiles, their jobless rate is between 5 and 10 times as high as the rest of the population.
Wow.
So if you guys are looking for potentially interesting hiring avenues in tech, it's definitely worth considering, and it's going to improve the diversity of your team. So just just a small bite of information there.
And a very important one. Thank you so much for sharing, Julien. That's very pertinent. We have a couple questions from the audience, but before I do this, I'll selfishly ask you guys a short answer, quick question to close up our conversation. For the people who are either free agents or thinking of moving, what's your best advice for people who are looking for a job in tech right now? Mark, let's start with you. Oh, sorry.
Call us. If you're looking for a job in tech, we're hiring. Call us.
Okay, Julien?
Coveo.com/careers.
I would just say you'll have a lot of choices. Go in the place where you feel that you can build the best relationships. On the long term, this is what's going to have the biggest impact on your career.
I feel like I have to directly compete with Mark's plug now, because we are also hiring both technical and non-technical roles. But the one thing that I will emphasize too, and this is not maybe just specific to tech, but great career advice that I've personally gotten along the way is don't just chase the money. Find something that you love and you believe in and that you can be great at, and the money's going to find you. I truly believe that.
Here.
Thank you so much, all three of you. We have two questions from the audience. The first one is there anything you wished your companies could still improve on to attract and retain talent?
Yes, always. Specifically, I think one of the things that we will see more of now that we're seeing the travel barriers come down is actually something that a colleague of mine who worked at Microsoft for many years was a strong advocate of, and we've not been able to put it in place yet, but it's that sense of, as you grow, particularly as you grow internationally, and we're at that cusp of 750 people plus, how do you give people the opportunity to work abroad? How do you take someone who has got a strong set of expertise and go plonk them in another country to set up a new office, a new program? How do you get that kind of cross-border opportunity moving? Because it spreads the culture of the company, and we've been, I think, shackled for the last 2 years of not being able to perhaps have as much freedom of movement. I think those will change.
Thank you so much. Another question we have from the audience: how important have values been in terms of attracting and keeping people, namely the articulation and the living of your values?
I think for us, this is huge. This is a huge part of our recruiting. When I think about values, I say this internally all the time. Values are not something that you just print and slap on a wall and forget about. If they're not alive and breathing in your organization, then they might as well not exist. And for us, it's everything from every morning we do a company-wide daily scrum, and part of that is core value shout-outs. Who on the team is going above and beyond and living our core values? What does that look like? The more that you can articulate to your team what it looks like to live a value or to make a tough decision based on a value, the more that entrenches to your team that this is the way we behave, and this is the way that we think and how we think we should treat people. And I think that is huge in terms of attracting the right people. You need to find people that share the same beliefs that you do, because that's what allows you to set them free and to make decisions the way that you would.
Absolutely. Julien, you get the closing words.
Well, I mean, on this specific question, I can't add a lot to what Kristen said. We're a big organization, right? So we have a lot of different teams, wealth management, retail banking, insurance, you name it, different sectors, operations, IT, HR, and so on. And it used to be very, very difficult to work together. There was this really siloed way of approaching things, which is a little bit normal in a large organization. The last couple of years, we've put a lot of intensity into going towards a one mission that's aimed at serving well our client. That's aimed at having a positive impact on humans. It's not just making money, it's actually making a difference. And that notion of one mission has helped a lot increase the happiness level, I would say, on the ground. people are more happy when they feel that they work in a collaborative manner rather than when they feel that they're constantly in sort of political conflicts, right? So this has been great. And the notion of having a human impact has also been huge, because then people start thinking, wait, I'm not just there for the bottom line of the company. How can I actually have a deeper impact? We always say that our stakeholders, yes, they're investors, their clients, their employees, but it's also the society that's around us. What's happening in the bank has an impact around us and the society, in the city, and everywhere we're based. And this has actually made a difference on I would say the happiness level of the employees, but also the work culture and how this translates into people being proud and happy to work for the bank and to continue doing so.
Wonderful. Great closing words. Thank you so much to the three of you. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was very insightful. So once again, thank you to Mark, Kristen, and Julien for this beautiful conversation. I really appreciate all their great feedback. I appreciate the audience for staying with us all this time and joining us for this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. So now the platform will remain open until 7 p.m. So if you want to do and continue some of the speed networking, the platform will be open for that in just a second. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our first Fintech Drink of the season. We will see you again in May in person for our next Fintech Drink. Stay tuned. Go follow us on LinkedIn so you know when to meet us for the next one. Bye, everyone. Take care.